There's no other way to put it. That's a bad call from the Mountain West. In the final year, uh, as as we know it in the Mountain West, that you would snub a team like New Mexico of their right to be in that Mountain West title game. After starting out in the conference play 0-2, they drop losses to San Jose State and Boise State. They would go on a 6-game winning streak, including knocking off UNLV and San Diego State most recently. How are you then going to come in and, Boise State, you can make an argument for? How are you going to put in UNLV, a team that dropped not only to Boise State, but also to New Mexico at home? How are you then going to have UNLV jump New Mexico and San Diego State to get into another Mountain West title game? I just find it hard to believe that how the Lobos went from winning a huge game on Friday against the number one team in the Mountain West, and had Boise State dropped the ball and lost to Utah State, New Mexico would not only be in it, they would be hosting the Mountain West title game. So for Boise State to win out and UNLV to win out, how does New Mexico get leapfrogged and find themselves finishing the season technically fourth in Mountain West play, despite beating two of the teams ahead of them? And if we're making this argument, I find it sort of tough that San Diego State, who was nearly perfect all season, even misses out on the Mountain West title game. The fact that the only game they lost to was New Mexico, at the last game of the season. They beat Boise State handily, and they don't play UNLV, and somehow they find themselves on the outside looking in as well. We're talking about computer metrics determine this. I don't know. It doesn't feel that way. Just looking at the head-to-head competition, how do you leave a team out that beat two of those teams ahead of them? It's a bad look for, the final year of the Mountain West play as we know it, with teams like Boise State and San Diego State. The fact that they would, find a way to force, a rematch from Boise State and UNLV from last season. And even when they played this season, Boise State whooped UNLV, completely dominated that game in the second half. So you want a rematch of that instead of New Mexico, who's riding in on a 6-game win streak? How about the fact that two of the teams left out were the only two teams that were undefeated at home, 6-0, and you don't find a way to put them in there, or you make sure that they can't host a Mountain West title game? This is one of those decisions that when you look at, you can't help but feel like there was other motives going into this decision. So now we got Boise State hosting UNLV. Assuming they win that game, they're going to be going to the LA Bowl. You got UNLV most likely going to the Arizona Bowl. San Diego State may find themselves in the Idaho Bowl or one of the other bowl games that are open. And do I need to say it? The projections for the Lobos for the past 5-6 weeks of the season had them going to the New Mexico Bowl, and now it seems like that's fully on track for them to happen. For the Lobo fans, that's got to be devastating, the fact that you could finish your season on a 6-game win streak, beating the number one team, and find yourself not in the Mountain West title game and likely ending up in your own bowl game. The only 9-win team in the country that's going to end up in their own bowl game. That's a bad look for Mountain West. Such a snub on a team that was projected to finish last in the conference, to get to 9 wins, to knock off the number one team in the Mountain West up into the very last week, and to say that you don't even get a chance at a Mountain West title game when the 3 other teams that you're tied with are all 6-2, and you've beat 2 of those teams, and one of those teams ends up getting in. It's got to be the bad beat of the season. And in the end, people are going to say that they should just be happy that they've gotten this far and that they were able to get to where they've gotten. But that's not right for a team that fought their way all season long, a team that's never been to a Mountain West title game. The fact that you're going to take that away from them. Fans at less than 48 hours ago were rushing the field for the first time. Nearly a sold-out crowd in the month of November that New Mexico's never seen before. You don't even need to be a New Mexico fan to see that this just doesn't feel right, doesn't sit right with anybody, that UNLV, despite losing to 2 of these teams, will find themselves in a Mountain West title game again. If you're a San Diego State fan, you feel like you should be in there. If you're a New Mexico fan, you know you should be in there. Boise State's just happy to be there, and the fact that they get to host again, despite dropping the ball 4 times this season. In the end, I think it should have been New Mexico going on to take on Boise State on the road. How do you think Mountain West should have turned out? Do you think Boise State and UNLV are the two teams deservingly to be in Mountain West title game, or do you think New Mexico or San Diego State should have been in there? Do you think that Mountain West tiebreaker rules need to be overhauled? Do you think they need to be much simpler? Do you think that they should be going to metrics when you have head-to-head competition to go to? And what do you think the motivations were for placing these two teams, ahead of San Diego State and New Mexico? I have a strong feeling that, when this all turns out next week, come next Sunday, when they're reading out bowl games, I think New Mexico is going to find themselves in their own bowl game, which would be a complete disappointment for a 9-3 team on the season, 6-2 in conference play, to wind up in their own bowl game, which they have for the past basically 2 decades. We'll see how things turn out. Definitely not the result that many people were expecting going into today. Who do you think is most deserving to be in the Mountain West title game? Let me know in the comments. Are you happy for your team? Are you completely disappointed? Who do you think's going to win this UNLV Boise State rematch up from last year's Mountain West title game?